exponential change, humans, our inability to deal with exponents, you know, I guess really blinds us to how much the future can change and how quickly it can change. Um, this maybe relates to people's general fear. Let's say no coiners, people that do not have any Bitcoin. There's this general anxiety that, oh, I'm too late to Bitcoin, right? It's already gone from zero to $30,000. How much higher could it possibly go? Um, is that are we too late to Bitcoin? And how do you wrestle with that anxiety from no coiners?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, regarding your point of exponential functions, that goes hand in hand with the other question of are we too late to Bitcoin? I think first regarding the exponential functions, I think again, we've less to come with the future in the past, and for the entirety of human history, we have had quasi-scarce or quasi-finite assets. Gold is finite, but we can just get more gold. Real estate
Mm-hmm.
is scarce, but the primary source of real estate scarcity is government regulation, and we can always change that to our benefit.
Mm-hmm.
So, because we've not seen actual finite scarcity before, we're trying to overlay our understanding of prices going up for those things onto Bitcoin. And so, in real estate, we think in terms of doubling, whereas with Bitcoin, we should think in terms of 1,000x or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's the first thing to decompress for someone that has that fear is that first part, what you said about humans' inability to comprehend exponential functions. Like we are horrible at it. I mean, even let's take stocks. The stock market has gone up, I think, 23x in the last 40 years. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so stocks are quasi scarce, and yet even that goes up dramatically. Like, it looks like a parabolic chart if you zoom out to the 1950s. Like, it's crazy. But Bitcoin is infinitely more scarce than the US stock market. And so then that segues into your second point about are we too late to Bitcoin? You know, no, people are not too late because with a political currency unit system, as the productivity of the human race increases, the game theory incentive for that political institution is to dilute their money to meet that productivity.
Mm-hmm.
Because let's say productivity is here, there's this many currency units that reflect that productivity. Productivity goes up. Well, now you have free range to debase all
Yeah.
that,
Right.
because it's the same house, but now
Yeah.
you can have this house price be the same in nominal terms, even though real terms have fallen, and you've just
Right.
debased onto your bondholders, onto your
Yeah.
cash holders. And so comparing that with Bitcoin is that it's always capped and that productivity goes up indefinitely. And
Mm-hmm.
so if you don't even want to be an optimist, if you just want to be a realist and assume baseline 100 years from today, there's going to be much more productivity, many more humans, and much more prosperity than there is today in the year 2023. And if we assume that Bitcoin is what we think it is, I mean, it seems very probable to me. It's been around for a decade and a half now, and it's
Mm-hmm.
never failed. Um, not for anyone, but give me any other system that's been able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Then to me it becomes obvious that as long as humanity continues to survive, and as long as you have any optimism on the future, then it's never too late to Bitcoin. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it, Bitcoin is again, money is a technology that prices in all the forms of technology, and so buying Bitcoin, you're basically going long the human race in the same way that you're buying the S&P 500 to go long the American corporate world. Like Bitcoin is so much better. Like that's what people understand. Bitcoin is lower risk than that. When you buy, if you have the right time horizon, of course. Obviously, people hate me for saying that, and they do hate me for saying that. But when you buy the American stock market, all you're doing is you're going along America's corporate sector, which is
Yeah.
highly dependent on easy monetary policy from the Fed. That's all you're
Mm-hmm.
doing. When you go long Bitcoin, you go long literally every single human being, every single innovation, every single discovery, every single invention of the past, the present, and the future. Like that's a lot lower risk
Mm-hmm.
because there are dozens of ways. And I think Saylor has 28. I think other people have like 30 or 40. There are dozens of ways of why the stocks and the real estate and all that it has that kind of high risk. So it's never too late. And the reason because it's never too late, and the reason because Bitcoin's price appreciation
Mm-hmm.
is so potent is because it's that lower risk system. And again, people hearing that think, oh, you're just saying Bitcoin's low risk, because you're thesis of Bitcoin skyrocketing to the moon is dead, where they think that
Mm.
it's made up as an excuse. Where it's like, no, that's the whole prerequisite. The reason Bitcoin has the potential to do so much more than anything else we've seen in the past is because it has that substantially lower risk than everything else.
Mhm.
And so it's like, okay, how much Bitcoin should I buy? Well, it's like we're filming this in 2023 here, August of 2023. 8 months is the halving. You mentioned a
Mhm.
few minutes ago about the 6 Bitcoin being mined. Okay, do you know how many sats there are per human per day of issuance in 8 months? I guess I'm asking you as well as everyone watching. Most people probably wouldn't have a guess, but the answer is six. In 8 months, there are six Satoshis being issued on the Bitcoin's network per human per day. And so you can buy how many? 3,600 for a single dollar. So like a cup of coffee is what, 15,000?
Mhm.
I mean, it's truly amazing. I mean, if you think long enough in the future, that's probably what's going to happen. That the majority of Bitcoin out there and being held, and the majority of Bitcoin out there being able to be exchanged will probably be from the Bitcoins that are being issued.
Mm.
That's often said that in 100 years roughly, or no, the year 2109, I think, so more like 90 years, is 37 sats block reward. Um, and it's like, yeah, you can think about that. Like, wow, 37 sats is generational wealth, but it's like 8 months, 6 sats a person a day. Okay, that's how many sats in a year? That's like 1,800 sats a year per human per day. You know, that's not a lot. So no, you're absolutely not too late since you can buy that many for like 2 quarters.
Mm.
And I think you didn't ask this, but I think something worthy to say there too is that people hear that and they think, oh, well, you're just salivating at the potential of everyone else to be much poorer than you are. You'll have so many more sats than they do. You're just relishing in your wealth inequality. And I would say that's fundamentally wrong. I think, again, that's having the fiat mindset. I think the better way to view it is that the average person in the future, if we're not pessimistic, not optimistic, if we're just realistic, the average person in the future will have much more prosperity than we could possibly imagine.
Mm.
And yet they will have, you know, how many sats? Like thousands?
Mhm. Mhm.
Maybe 10, 20, 30,000 sats a person. I mean, do the
Mm.
math. It's truly astounding the sheer scarcity of sats per humans today
Mhm.
and sats per human in the future, and to think that there's only going to be more prosperity priced in terms of those things.
Mm.
It sounds like someone would say just as hype, but then if we think backwards from first principles, again, if the people from 100 years ago have more in common with the Romans than we do today, if you
Mm.
went back to ancient Rome, and this is ultimately the reason why I care about talking about Bitcoin. We are currently in ancient Rome. There are 21 million gold coins in circulation across the entire planet, millions of which have been lost. And like, I'm out there in my tunic or whatever, shouting at people that
Mm.
by the time your kids are your age, we're going to be in 1950s America, where we're going to have black and white TV, and we're going to have, planes, we're about to land at man on the moon or whatever, and
Mhm.
all that stuff. It's like, the amount of change that's coming is going to be so dramatic. It's like your career is going to not only go away, but it's going to cycle through multiple tech revolutions within the rest of your career than your children's career. It's like the college education you're getting, the things you're saving in oxen and olive oil, and in a couple of decades you're going to be saving in the S&P 500. It's like, what's the S&P? It's
Yeah.
we're in that ancient world and we're trying to explain the coming future world to them, and they're like, oh wow, their mind's blown. And then you say, yeah, then after we get to 1950s America, then you have the computer, the internet, and the digital revolution, and everything else that's happened since then. Thank you so much for watching my content and being a supporter of mine. I really appreciate it. It's a lot of fun for me to do, and it's really meaningful to know that so many people are enjoying my content and learning about Bitcoin. I think it's so important for people to get off zero. In addition to getting off zero, it is really critical. It is really important that you also begin taking self-custody of your sats and of your Bitcoin. This is because if you have Bitcoin on an exchange or you don't have proper self-custody, this is going to be a massive problem for you in the future, most likely. If Bitcoin starts having rapid periods of appreciation and there are rapid spikes in demand for Bitcoin education, and for Bitcoin advocates and advisors, it's going to be increasingly important that you have self-custody of those coins. So my message to you is please consider getting that self-custody. Now, you can do that on your own. There are plenty of free tutorials online. There's plenty of great work like that. But if you want somebody to help you with self-custody, if you want somebody to help you take cold storage of your Bitcoin, of your Satoshis, if you want somebody to help you set up a multi-sig vault, to set up an estate plan, to set up a plan for you as a person, an individual, as a business owner, as a charity, whatever the case, I work at the Bitcoin Advisor, and I'm happy to say that I really enjoy it. I love working with my clients. You know, my job is literally to help people buy Bitcoin and secure it properly for years, decades, and generations to come. So if you want to learn about my services at the Bitcoin Advisor and what we do, you should click the link in the description. Here you can read a bit about what I do. You can book a free consultation with me. You can book a free meeting with me. I'll send you lots of free complimentary paperwork explaining how multi-sig vaults work, cold storage, giving you all the education you need. Everything's fully open source. What we do, our main goal is education, helping get coins off exchanges, and people be able to not lose sleep at night when they buy and secure their Bitcoin. So you can feel free to book a meeting with me. The first one is free and complimentary, just to figure out what your priorities are and get that adjusted. But if that's something that could be used to you, I really highly encourage you to take self-custody, whether that's with me or not. Please just do it. But for the many of you that probably will eventually want a multi-sig collaborative custody vault, the Bitcoin Advisor could be the place to go. And so click the link in the description, check that out. Really appreciate your time. That's basically the way to think about Bitcoin, that you're in the ancient world, there's 21 million gold coins, and all that prosperity that we're describing in the next few decades, next century or so, is very likely going to be priced in terms of that Bitcoin. And so are people too late to Bitcoin? No, absolutely not. And I think that comes from a fiat mindset. I don't think people that ask that are unserious people per se, but I do think that needs to be corrected. I've met so many people that say, I bought Bitcoin at $10 and I sold it at $1,000, or I bought Bitcoin at 5,000, I sold it 15,000, I tripled my money. And it's like, you know, I don't know if you want me to get into the black hole singularity metaphor, but you know, that's basically what it is. It's like you're jumping out of the black hole just to fall in again at a higher price. You know, with Bitcoin, if you're, or let's say the boat metaphor, you know, if the price of lifeboats is designed to go up forever, both as number one, the Titanic sinks, but also number two, as the lifeboats grow, you know, the lifeboats get bigger, the lifeboats get better, there's more people in the lifeboats, you know, the value of those lifeboats in relation to the sinking ship goes up exponentially. It's like, why on earth would you take profits in terms of that seat of the lifeboat to get back on the ship? Like it's nonsensical, you know. And so in the same way, again, earlier, like the bell curve, you know, the people over here are bullish on Bitcoin to 100,000, and they'll cash out and sell. Then you have the crazy people like Robert Breedlove and Luke Broyles that are like, yeah, Bitcoin's going to 10 million or $100 million, and that's bearish. and yeah, I'll never sell. To people, it doesn't make any sense because they're thinking of the locomotive in terms of horses. It doesn't make any comprehensive.
It's the denominator. It's the denominator. It's the dollar denominator. It's when the understanding that there's so many memes about this, right? There's the Matrix meme where it's Morpheus talking to Neo. It's like, so you're telling me one day I can sell my Bitcoin for $100 million? And Morpheus is like, no, I'm telling you, Neo, when you're ready, you won't have to. It's like the frame of the US dollar is what's going away. So even when we say Bitcoin goes to $100 million, we're not saying that you're going to want to sell it at that point for $100 million. It's like the US dollar is on its path to irrelevance in that situation. There's going to come a point where pricing things in US dollars just won't make any sense anymore. Just like pricing things in any hyperinflating currency eventually doesn't make any sense, and they get repriced into something that's not hyperinflating.